held down by some countries who see Nigeria as a threat to the world if it prospers. He also added that the nation also continued to experience little progress because the elite benefit from corruption and would eliminate anyone trying to disrupt that status quo. Bakare also said that he said this while he was ministering to his sons and daughters living in London. His message was celebrating God's grace or God's legacy, honoring the past and celebrating the future. Though he said he was not averse to Nigeria's relationship with the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, he also said that Nigeria's leaders failed to discover the root cause of its problem while they are keen on building legacies. So holding back from from mentioning those countries who would not want Nigeria to be on par with other developed countries. He said the leadership of the nation continued to go to bed with world giants with its two eyes closed. So I don't think there's anything far from what Davido said with what the man of God has said. The truth is we know our realities. And you know, what is most painful to me as a citizen is the fact that I see a lot of leaders and I see how when they go outside of this country, how they are, you know, they kind of enjoy, you know, they love the idea that things are working there. And yet they are not able to translate that idea back into their home countries. I had a friend, she was an interior designer. She used to do interiors. So she used to go to Turkey, different places to bring in beautiful pieces of interiors and then decorate people's homes. You know, one day I went to her home, she invited me and I said, wow, your house is lovely. She said, yes. She said, first of all, she makes other people's home very beautiful. Secondly, if a home is not as beautiful, she will never be comfortable coming back home. Right. She will always feel like, you know, I want to stay out there. I don't want to be part of this home. She said, my dear, I don't want to go to somebody's house and be wishing that my house was like that. So when I buy things, when I bring in things, I make sure that it is the most beautiful pieces, the most expensive pieces. She not go pay share. She go make her husband pay. But it's all right. That I will first of all bring to my home. You understand? Because I want to come home and not be wishing I was living in somebody else's house.
Right.
So I don't understand how that pride cannot be translated to our Nigerian leaders. Look at what UAE is doing. They have told themselves that there's no country, Saudi Arabia, almost all these Arab countries, they've told themselves that they have to be on top of their game. So that's why when you go to their airport, it's changing per minute, per second. Right? I've not been to Qatar for a long time. This year, I went to Qatar. Oh my goodness. The airport had transformed again.
I do not like that airport. I think it's too much, though. For some reason.
I believe there. Maybe we even still get small. We say it is too much. Leave on. If you go again, you will see something different.
Oh, wow.
They're always changing things. Even the airport in Dubai. Even Dubai, I've not been to Dubai in years. I'm sure the day I will go there, I will not recognize the airport. Not be our country. It's where?
I mean, it definitely
Someone know they talk again, but we'll be all right. Pastor Tunde Bakare has said it on our behalf. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, let's discuss malaria. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future,
yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, malaria poses a significant public health and economic challenge in Nigeria, with the country losing an estimated 1.1 billion annually due to the healthcare cost and lost productivity. With about 97% of the population at risk, malaria not only leads to severe health consequences but also hampers economic growth, particularly in impoverished regions where access to healthcare is limited. The financial burden falls heavily on households consuming a substantial portion of their income and contributing to the cycles of poverty. To shed more light on this is Dr. Olabayo Esan, a medic, coach, author, and entrepreneur with rearing interest in medical education and pediatrics oncology. He is an alumni of the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, and currently practices at the Federal Medical Center, Ebute Metta, Lagos. And he's joined us via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, good evening. Okay, so quickly, malaria. First of all, is this figure of 1.1 billion loss, is it realistic, or we're just trying to make, is it a realistic conclusion or summation or whatever?
Yeah, looking at the figure at a glance, it seems like something cooked up. However, if you consider a number of factors with regards to what malaria causes in Nigeria, I think we could say the actual number should be close to what was stated, close to that 1.1 billion dollars that was stated. Yeah, so the thing is also really get the figures. We need to talk about the different factors that contribute to each of the plight of malaria in Nigeria and eventually adding up to that figure. So in my own opinion, I think it's close to it, maybe not necessarily $1.1 billion, but at least up to that amount.
So before I let Zivi come in, malaria is almost like having a headache in Nigeria, because we know that one of our major challenges, health challenges, in Nigeria is malaria. And again, it is not far from the kind of region, the tropical region that we live in, the kind of things we're exposed to. But there's one common thing that I've also observed, that when you go to certain kinds of location, based on how it is set up, right? Drainages, open drainages, and all of those things, right? These are like very, very clear breathing grounds for malaria. So is it that, first of all, that we are just kind of clueless as to how to completely eradicate malaria, or is something that truly cannot be eliminated from the Nigerian system? Because, I mean, if we already know why we have issues around malaria, how all of these things contribute to it, why is there no active intention to want to just, let us eliminate this? Because $1.1 billion is a lot of money. I mean, if these figures are true, then we're losing a lot. So why are we not solving that problem? Because I don't think it will cost us $1.1 billion to solve the challenge of just eradicating the malaria in the first place. So help me understand it, Doctor.
Okay, so yes, it is possible to eradicate malaria. However, the journey towards doing that is very complex. And that stems from the fact that the entire process of malaria transmission in the first place is not entirely straightforward. And when the causative organism for the infection gets into the body, malaria is not really like other forms of infection in which our body could grow with immunity towards it. It's one that the parasite. So let me start by saying that the transmission of malaria, first of all, starts from the Plasmodium parasite. That's the parasite that is transmitted through mosquito. We all know that mosquitoes, we all have the idea that mosquitoes cause malaria. However, mosquitoes are just the carrier to the particular causative organism of malaria, which is Plasmodium species. So the first thing is, why I said it's complex is that we need to deal with each of those different areas, the mosquitoes themselves, then the Plasmodium that they carry, and then before talking about the the plasmodium within the bloodstream, and then the complexities about how it interacts with our immune system. So to just break down in a bit of layman term for everyone to understand. It would be nearly not completely impossible, but difficult to first of all eradicate mosquitoes, which are the vectors for the Plasmodium species itself. Yes, that would entail a number of maybe widespread mass communication in different areas in the country. So that's why. So that alone, aside the 1.1 billion naira that is lost, the cost of having to do a widespread campaign of getting rid of mosquitoes is one thing. Secondly, the Plasmodium itself, the Plasmodium species itself, thrives by living in humans as well as living in mosquitoes. So even if you eradicate it in humans, there's still the other aspect about it, it living as a species in humans. Then, so the Plasmodium itself, once it enters into the bloodstream of humans, normally, like I said, other forms of organisms, usually our immune system is strong enough to deal with them. But malaria, once it's inside the body, finds ways to maneuver and escape through immunity. And that makes it very, very difficult for the body to handle, especially for people that are very susceptible, like children, like pregnant women. These are people that have very low immunity, and as a result, they can get affected by malaria at like very extreme fashions or the extreme manifestations. So yeah, to answer your question, yes, the in terms of eradication, it's possible, but it is difficult, and because of the different complexities that I mentioned. But I want to also make mention of the fact that although this process is a bit difficult to achieve, Nigerian government and Nigeria as a whole, they're still making, in terms of healthcare, we're still making efforts. I think yearly we are getting insecticide treated nets. We import insecticides itself, so chemical insecticide imported yearly. We have the ones that we use as screen, we sleep at night with. Aside that, then mass public education, health education is also made for people to be aware about it, most aware about malaria and tend to prevent it. And then most importantly, or most recently, I heard about the malaria vaccine that was eventually tested and approved by WHO. And I also heard about the fact that the Nigerian government made efforts to acquire some of the vaccines. So efforts are actually being made in the process of eradicating malaria. It's just the complex nature of the infection and the different things we need to tackle, because it's just not just one thing alone, we're tackling different things for us to be able to eradicate it. That makes that a bit that looks like it is impossible to achieve.
All right, thank you, Dr. Esan, for that. And I have to ask this. When it comes to malaria, are there certain demographics that are more at risk of contracting malaria? And there's a popular phrase that says, oh, it's a disease of poverty. Can you describe how that actually is?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Yes, they are demographics. First of all, just at large, like I think you mentioned earlier, the tropical region tends to be affected more than temperate regions, and that is by virtue of the fact that we stay largely in like the rainforest environment. So the reason why that is so, the reason why these areas are affected more, and we can also break it down in terms of Nigeria. People in Lagos, people in the south are closer to like the rainforest, closer to like the sea, compared to people that are up there in the north. So that's close to the desert and the savannah. Yes. So the reason why that is so is just based on the way in which the Plasmodium species and mosquito itself mosquito as the carrier tends to live its life cycle. So mosquitoes are bred better in those environments. The larva of mosquito tends to grow within water, especially stagnant water or ponds or streams. So if you think about it, like in a place like Lagos, where we have, and this is, okay, let me be more specific to the question you asked. In a place like Lagos, where there is poor drainage system in some areas, what you have is that whenever there's rain, because we're living in the rainforest environment, so we have a lot of rain. whenever there's rain, due to poor drainage in some particular areas in Lagos, you could have stagnant water accumulating for a period of time. And that allows for the mosquito to breed, grow, develop, to get from there, they pick up the plasmodium and then they can easily infect whoever is living in that particular residence. So it's just so to one area, to one aspect, climate and just the geography of a particular region allows for the easy breeding of mosquitoes and eventually transmission of malaria. But at the same time, poverty also contributes because if you look at some areas in Lagos, even though those areas, so some popular areas in Lagos that are more affluent, even though those areas are also exposed to the form of rain, that area is exposed to, the drainage system is good or better. And as a result, those stagnant water that we would see in other areas are not really present there. And because of that, we see less breeding of mosquitoes and also prevention as well. So remember I talked about some ways in which we can prevent malaria. People that are more affluent to be able to prevent it better than people that are in poor environments. So there are many ways we can prevent malaria. So some of the ways that use of insecticide, use of nets, these things are very expensive if you consider the price or the cost compared in different geography, different individuals. You notice that the difference is huge in terms of cost, and as a result, people in poor environments might not be able to afford insecticide treated nets or spray compared to people that are wealthy. But just by geography alone, yes, geography does a lot in increasing the predisposition to malaria occurring.
Interesting. But you see, the truth about this malaria thing, because I know that a lot of non-governmental organizations, especially the ones abroad, right, they are investing heavily. One of such is Bill Gates. You know, he carried that malaria matter for his head. Yeah. And I know that they were giving out a lot of mosquito nets and all of that. But you see, human beings, after they've given out that mosquito net, these people who carry the net, instead of using it, they'll go and try to sell. Even when they gave to hospitals to distribute for free, those of you start seeing those nets in traffic, that they are hawking those nets in traffic. So it's just really sad, because the truth is, if we really want to eliminate some of these things, it also takes the will to do it. Because if there's no will, you won't see, no matter how much effort that is being made, nothing will happen. I've seen people do things anyhow. You understand? Nobody cares. Let me just do it the way I want to do it. And that's what we have in Nigeria. So no matter how great the initiative is, if we don't have the right people to back it up, it will not go anywhere. So, Doctor, so we're talking about the impact, right? Economic impact. In your own assessment, apart from, health, downtime, and all of those things, has malaria really impacted our economy in Nigeria?
Yes, it has. We can't but mention the first of all the health implication and then the health cost of malaria itself, because just by treating it, usually they even make a statement in the health sector that having to even test malaria is more expensive than having to treat it, and treating it itself is a lot. I recently just treated malaria myself a few weeks ago, and I was shocked as to how much the price has gone from just getting a pack of anti-malaria drug. I think I got mine for about 6,000 naira. So imagine in a place where the poverty rate is about 30 to 40%, but 40% of the population are living below the poverty line. Having to afford that just to treat your child of malaria or treat your wife of malaria or your sibling of malaria, it's a lot. Even for me as a healthcare worker that I'm earning a little bit in terms of finance, it was a lot from my pockets just to remove 6,000 naira to get anti-malaria, just to treat for 3 days and I'll be fine. So the health cost itself is one area. Like you mentioned, the lack or loss of productivity, because as workers, whether you're working in the healthcare sector, or working in media or otherwise, just being down with malaria. There are different forms of malaria. You could have complicated or uncomplicated form. Complicated or conform is the more severe one. That one you need to be treated properly, probably in a hospital, getting IV medications. And the less severe one is one we all treat with oral drugs. But either of them would tend to lead to people not active at work, and that automatically reduces productivity, reduces the earning power of the country as a whole. So that's that. In terms of education, it could also be one of the reasons why it could also affect the educational system. Children are very susceptible to having malaria. A lot of children under the age of 5 have higher predisposition to having malaria because of their immunity, and as a result, you get this will lead to them not going to school certain period of time. If they have severe malaria, they need to be admitted in the hospital. They've lost some time out in school. Things they're meant to be learning are not learning. As a result, that is reducing a lot of things in terms of their education. So it affects it. One area I also see to it is even the cost of the government having to import some of the, and maybe that's the reason why it is all the way up to the $1.1 billion that was said. But having to import some of those things we just use for prevention alone, it's likely to affect costs. It's likely to affect government spending. If government is spending a lot, they don't have enough money to move to other areas that are more important. They are spending on health. Whereas if they have a crisis of malaria now, that's maybe it's not up to 1.1 billion, but that's 1.1 billion they're spending on healthcare alone. Automatically, it will be sent to somewhere else, and it will be used in
No,
developing
doctor, don't say that one. No.
infrastructures.
Where we they complain say there's no enough funds in the healthcare. You say, abe, let them spend it. If they are spending it,
No.
we're happy for them to
Yes,
see it spending. At least equip the hospitals.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so yes, even if they're not spending it elsewhere and they want to focus on it, there are many things they can do in just the healthcare sector alone with that money. That doesn't have to be them importing insecticide to them, or having to even get it from Bill Gates, like you said, or getting those chemical insecticides. And even the vaccine that we want to buy, I'm sure it's not cheap.
Okay, you know what, doctor?
So the cost of
Sorry to cut you short. We just need to go on a very short break, right? When we come back, I want us to continue on what your train of thought. Please don't lose it. We'll be right back. Okay, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you're just tuning in, we're still having a conversation about how malaria has cost Nigeria $1.1 billion annually. Dollars, so no be naira. And Dr. Olabayo Esan is here with us. He's a medic, a coach, author, and entrepreneur. Yes, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-803-84663. Our phone lines are also open. The numbers to call 07025007749 or 07014242420. So, Doctor, can you finish your train of thoughts? Then I want to share quickly what I saw when I was watching. I don't know if you saw that Idris Elba's Gold Rush. Did you watch that documentary on Netflix? You should go and watch it. Okay. But doctor, you wanna land that point? Okay. I hope I didn't make you lose your point.
Yes, just wanted to add something extra to it. So another area in which I feel that could also impact economy could be tourism. So tourism in the sense that a lot of people come into Lagos, come to Nigeria, Abuja, from different countries, and they might end up in the hospital or having to treat
that one no follow, doctor. You know why I say no follow? Because most people, when they come, especially people that are coming from America or all these other places, they come first of all with mosquito repellent. They rub it on their body. Most of them actually come prepared because they know that they are coming to the region that they have mosquitoes. So that one it won't really affect. So I watched that documentary that Idris Elba did on I think it was on Netflix, the Gold Rush one, the one that talked about gold. I know that because some of the companies that were mining, right, we're coming into those communities. Part of what they brought into the community, so apart from just saying, you talked about oil, how they've destroyed your community. So that community, what they did was, because they're also infested with a lot of mosquitoes, right? So what the company does is the entire village, like they literally have this, what's it called? What's the word now? The thing they use for the fumigation. That are like odorless, that are like harmless to humans, but they are very, very potent to eliminating mosquitoes. So what they do as part of their own corporate social responsibility, that entire village, entire community where they have the mining, their company where they are mining, they fumigate the entire village. So mosquitoes was one of the biggest challenges that community had, but they don't have it anymore. So I'm saying that if we really are intentional about the health of our people, we have different companies coming into what's it called, into Nigeria on a daily basis. All these Chinese companies, the Indian companies, mandate them. Okay, within your vicinity, what are you doing? You understand? This is one of the challenges that we have. How do you solve that problem? I know that a lot of estate, I don't know about your own estate, my own estate, they send us email every now and then. We are fumigating. So they do the external fumigation. So by the time they have done all those external fumigation, what is left is just very minute.
When you
do you understand?
think about it, it sounds good on paper, but is it possible that regardless of whether it's a green system of fumigation, could there be other health effects that could come up over a protected period?
I don't think so. I don't, because most of these people, first of all, you know that they are afraid of lawsuits. So they will not even bring, I mean, we use things to fumigate our houses, right? So imagine if we have, and you know, for instance, in Lagos now, let me not speak for other states, we have a lot of gated estates. If estates are already doing it, so what the government would be really burdened with would be those open areas, or those locations that don't have, like, they're not properly coordinated, you understand? So you then focus on those kinds of areas. So doctor, do you think that can really go far? Because I mean, if we start to mandate companies to say, you know what, part of corporate social responsibility, we need to find means to eradicate malaria in our country, would that help? Would that go far?
Yes, yes. So I did mention that for us, one of the things we need to target would be the mosquitoes themselves, and I mentioned mass fumigation. Yeah. So it's interesting that you brought up that point about the Idris Alba thing about the fumigation of the village, and yes, so that is something that is on a large scale very, very possible and very likely to eradicate at least first step in eradicating the mosquitoes vectors to malaria itself. It is something that will take combined effort of the government and the private sector, because on one end, the government might not necessarily be able to handle every single one, like the entire aspect of that mass communication, as mentioned. So, working with the private sector, like a Chinese company, might do justice to that program. Again, because when maybe they get the supplies for the chemicals, then it's the job of the government to incentivize and educate people to help out with the communication. And just like what you said about the estates, the way we are doing it in the estates, and you are having less amount of malaria occurring in people that in those areas, if the government can incentivize people in open areas, poor areas, the way they do the vaccination now, they just go to different places. They want to vaccinate those children. Something that you can have like a mass program, employ people. Yeah. From there, you have little by little, it might not occur overnight, but little by little, the effect of malaria would be reduced. Yeah. So yes, I do feel it's a wide campaign, but it's one that is promising in the eradication of malaria. As to how we can go about that, that's a whole different story. And probably just looking at the capacity of Nigeria as a whole, looking at the size and population, okay, that's a different story entirely. That one will involve a lot of public health, a lot of advocacy to the government, a lot of mass power to accomplish that.
Some countries in Africa have somehow been able to completely eradicate. I think 2 or 3 countries have, not a lot of countries have done that. Mauritius, Algeria. Yeah. So is there a blueprint that we can use? What exactly did they do? Did they set a time scale for it? Is there something that we can implement the system that has worked for them?
Well, looking at countries that have done that, first of all, look, different countries have different sizes and different population as well. So I will not. It would be a mistake or an error to equate the population size of one country to that of Nigeria. I think we have like the largest population in Africa, still growing. However, following the blueprint, because doing it in small areas, in and being strategic about it could go a long way, even if it is not the entire country touches, like at least important areas very populated areas like Lagos, Kano, and other areas in Nigeria that have large population. Try from there. But in terms of blueprints, that I'm not really aware about the blueprints that most of those countries actually use. But thinking about just implementing it, the only way I see to it is just making it like the vaccine, the way we do our vaccination here. I think the vaccination, way we the scheme for vaccination here is one that, although
It's
it's not
effective.
perfect, but still works to an extent.
It's effective to some extent, yeah.
Yeah, to an extent.
Okay, let's talk money. Because, we always talk about it's out there, not enough money is being allocated to healthcare. Is the government, in your opinion, Dr. Esan, spending more money on treating malaria or preventing malaria at this point?
Okay, so in terms of the government spending with respect to malaria, it is more in line with prevention rather than treatment. So most treatment costs usually is paid out of pocket, and that's because of the fact that Nigeria as a whole, the healthcare system in Nigeria as a whole has very poor coverage for insurance, health insurance. It's increasing over the years, but it's still not good enough for a country that has this large of a population. So if you're comparing Nigeria to like other countries like the UK, like Canada, although these are first world countries, their health coverage is wide enough to accommodate most of the citizens, so 80 to 90% of the citizens, right? Some of them are paying out of pocket. So that's one thing. So most people that are going to be treating themselves with malaria are going to be treated out of pocket and not through government spending, not through government insurance. You understand? So as a result, in terms of treatment itself, government is really not doing so much. But in terms of the prevention, yes, that's the area that they do a lot. They spend quite alright to acquire some of those things, but they also have some form of collaboration with these non-governmental organizations that give free materials to them for prevention. So yes, government they do a lot in terms of prevention, but in terms of treatment, the cost is on the household that is treating the malaria just because of the fact that the healthcare insurance is very bad. Coverage is very poor in this country.
I hear you, but malaria has been kind of like the treatment has been made very easy. That's why you see a lot of all these malaria drugs being advertised, and they tell you if you take the medication, if symptoms persist after 3 days, consult your doctor. We hear that all the time, Since I feel like because malaria doesn't seem, so malaria can be very lethal, right? It can be very deadly, but at the same time, a lot of us come down with malaria, and in 3 days after we take a medication, and we're good. I feel like maybe that's why it's not being really paid attention to, or is it just a general thing that the government is not just interested in anything that has to do with the health of their citizens? Because to some extent, right, if you go to any pharmacy, off of the counter, you can get a very decent malaria.
And that's also a problem.
Yeah, so so a lot of us, we don't get tested. We just say, no, you're having a fever. The next thing you
malaria.
say, I got one mosquito. Like me now, I saw one mosquito that sucked my blood because when I saw because it actually, I don't know to the extent that the blood, maybe it was excess blood. It was the blood spot that I saw on my bed sheet.
Oh, wow.
I said, this mosquito, you get liver, so you took your time, because I've not been in the house for a while. It's like they missed my blood.
Oh, wow.
But doctor, that is on the flip side. So tell me, please, is it possible that because malaria seems to be, because malaria is a serious illness, but it doesn't seem like, our government is paying attention to it? Because, honestly, what I have seen when it comes to malaria prevention and treatment and all of that, it is more international bodies, foreign governments and all of those. They are the ones that are fighting it more, because most of them are saying that, please, so that you don't bring your malaria and bring it to my country. So let me come and help you solve your problem. So do you think that it's part of the reason we're still having crisis when it comes to malaria, and that is why it's also impacting us, economically?
Yeah, so on one end, yes, you rightly said it that on one side, the foreign international organizations are the ones really providing some of these materials, prevention and treatment. And also, people might not necessarily, especially the government, might not necessarily take it so seriously in terms of the fact that okay, malaria is like an everyday common illness that we treat. But sorry, just to bring a little bit of perspective as well to that, as you were making a statement about okay, having when people have fever, we just go, and I'm guilty about that. I'm guilty of that as well. When we have fever, we just think it's malaria. We go, we don't even test ourselves. On the flip side, that could also lead to a bit of difficulty in treating malaria because the more we treat ourselves empirically without testing to know that whether we have malaria or not, the lesser those drugs become effective. So there's in medical science, we work for drug resistance. When we keep using a particular drug, even regardless of whether the thing we're trying to treat is
It
present or
develops
not,
resistance, yeah.
that yes, that drug becomes like ineffective because the organism we're trying to eradicate or treat starts to grow a little bit of resistance to the drug. So at some point, it was chloroquine that was the main drug in treating malaria in Nigeria. Now we hardly see chloroquine being prescribed in Nigeria because of resistance to chloroquine. Now we use the combination drug, the artemisinin combination therapy. So drugs like desonate, drugs like what they call it, Patem, that's chemical infiltrate. But like you rightly said, people don't necessarily need to test; they just go treat. And sometimes they get better, sometimes they don't. That depends on whether they really they have the malaria or not, whether it's a severe form. But on the flip side, like I said, that would also be detrimental in the long run because if you keep treating and you don't really have malaria, you would be exposed to resistance from there. So yes, but to answer your question with regards to whether that could have an impact in how the cost of malaria is eventually affecting the economy and why it is difficult for us to treat because the government is not really paying attention. Yes, I do feel that plays a role because if we take malaria as because if you take malaria as an everyday illness, we don't really see it as anything serious. Just any single thing we have, we just treat malaria. And funny how that is actually not the guideline. The guideline now is whenever you have symptoms that are similar to malaria, you should get tested. There's a kit we use in rapidly determining whether someone has a malaria or not. We don't really need to take the blood, run it the test for a long amount of time. Just take a small chunk of the blood, test it, and within seconds, you know whether this has malaria, and you can treat. So yes, that might have affected the people's seriousness towards malaria, and we don't really take it seriously until we are faced with maybe a severe form of malaria, and a child or a pregnant woman is having to face serious.
Oh wow, we're having challenges with the network.
I'm actually curious about this, and when Dr. said, "Oh, okay,
Doctor, are you back?"
So, yeah.
Okay, doctor, we lost you for like 2 seconds or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said when a
2
pregnant
seconds.
woman,
Oh,
that was
okay.
where we lost
I
you.
can
Go
hear you,
ahead.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Go ahead. You said people don't take it seriously
So, yeah,
until
so
when
I
a
said, so
pregnant
when
woman.
a child
Yeah.
comes out with a severe form of malaria. So when they come out with a severe form of malaria, that could lead to them being hospitalized and then being treated with like drugs that have higher costs benefit. So the cost implication of not taking it seriously at the grassroots could lead to more severe cases from there. Yeah. So yes.
Okay.
Well, I just wanted to chip in. I just need to chip in that point about the resistance. I think that's also
No,
important.
but it's even important that you're chipping it. But I wanted to quickly ask you now, because I've heard some conversations around cerebral malaria, for instance. That's the one that is very, very deadly, right? Is it as a result of the prolonged, like if you let malaria stay in your system for too long, that it then goes into, is that it? Can you help us explain it better? So that people that, once you feel any symptom, you just go to the hospital and get tested and get treated. Oh, did we lose the doctor? Because I've heard that cerebral malaria is as a result of like if you've allowed malaria stay in your system for too long, and it then goes into your brain. I don't know if that is true.
I would like to ask Dr. Esan what he thinks about alternative medicine or therapy when it comes to treating malaria, because back in the day, our grandparents are very healthy.
Do you know what they told me? It was actually Auntie Yeni Kuti. We call her YK.
Yes.
Yeni Kuti. She was the one that told me that since whatever 1951 thing, she has never gotten malaria. And the reason she hadn't gotten malaria is one herb or something.
Wow.
Yes. That I was not asking, where this herb? Bring it, let me drink
miracle
it.
herb.
No, because in all honesty, right, the traditional medicine, those traditional herbs and all of that we have, because God is so wonderful. Right? We still have them. It's just that maybe people don't have the knowledge
anymore. Yes.
But God is so wonderful. Everything we need to be healthy, to stay alive, it is within us, is growing from our grounds. Right. So that's why sometimes it's just, is it that because we are too blessed with so many things, that's why we just, because if not, we're supposed to have.
Absolutely.
So there's that thing she told, because I remember her saying it, that she's not had malaria in years. Like literally, she's never fallen ill because that particular herb that was mixed, whatever it was that they gave her to take,
Wow, that was being like the herb of life.
Let me take Loma. Loma, good evening. You're live.
Hey, my beautiful.
Good evening.
And the other of my sister in the hospital.
Good evening.
Thank you very much. I want us to do stress. If you see what is happening, this particular malaria crisis of $1.1 billion is not impacting in the economy. We don't see it. These are the money they map out to use for their own family. And they will tell us, look at how many people go to hospitals. You will see how many people suffer. Even as I'm talking to you now, malaria appears by mouth, left and right. So I want to let you know that Nigerian government is not interested in the health of the citizenry. Because if they are interested, both prevention and treatment must go simultaneously. But it's quite unfortunate that we have leaders who are not prepared to govern the people, but they just go into it because of their wealth. But I continue to tell you people, one day, the Messiah of Nigeria will arrive, and the true person will go there. Malaria will be a thing of the past. The way they are treating it in the overseas, we will get somebody that will do it here in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Loma. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but here we have the guest. So back, Dr. Esan, can you give us like two minutes? Zibi wanted to ask quickly.
Yes, okay. Dr. Esan, what is your perspective on alternate treatments for malaria, like herbal medicine, natural remedies, and things like that?
Okay. With regards to herbal treatment of malaria, okay, before orthodox medicine came into the country, that was years back, we Nigerians have found ways to treat malaria, and besides these orthodox drugs that we all know of, like the chloroquines and the like, they are also gotten from herbs, just they're well refined. So yes, on one hand, we have herbs that do work for malaria, but on the other hand, just from the standpoint of orthodox medicine and of practice, the current practice in Nigeria and the healthcare system, it can be a double-edged sword. So you could have treatment of malaria occurring better with those herbal drugs, but because of the fact that these drugs have not gone through a lot of rigorous testing, the same way in which the orthodox drug tend to be tested. So what I mean by tested is that for a drug to be approved as a drug to treat any infection, regardless of whether it's malaria or not, we need to first of all go through the lab, test on animals, and test on humans. Again, and we're testing on humans, we are ensuring that they are not toxic, too toxic to the point in which the risk would have outweigh the benefits. And then we now finally mass produce. And there tend to also be regulations there. So the NAFDAC, for example, regulates the drugs and food that we have in Nigeria. So NAFDAC needs to approve those. So orthodox drugs go through rigorous testing. So we don't see that level of detail, that level of extra effort being put into those herbs. So the herbs do work because at the end of the day, these drugs are gotten from the herbs, but they could also be detrimental. And if we don't really have an idea about the risk of a particular herb, the side effects of the herbs, as compared to the benefits, you can just be using something that will cause something else in our body. Like, say, take for example, chloroquine as a drug by itself. without it being refined, is a drug that can lead to problems with the heart. It is used to treat heart problems. It also causes heart problems, what we call arrhythmias. So imagine someone getting a herb like chloroquine, grinding it, turning it into the popular abu and taking it. Though that person might be treating the malaria, but that person could also be causing something else to their other organs, like the heart. So that's just it. So it's a bit of dilemma because on one hand, those herbs are cheap to get. They are easily accessible in poor environments. People are likely to get that and having to go and spend 6,000 naira buying anti-malaria drug. But on the other hand, the risk might outweigh the benefits, and that's the reason why we don't really encourage people to use those things because they're not really well tested.
Okay.
It's a mix. Okay.
Unfortunately, we ran out of time. But thank you so much, Doctor, for your time this evening.
All right.
We'll definitely pick up this conversation some other time. Now, if you missed our quote for today, here it is again. Reducing the burden of malaria in Nigeria will help to contribute to the economic well-being of communities, and poverty reduction will be an essential input into improving health. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much, Zimi.
Thank you.
Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Ways Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.